Padaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Ite Namane Namaste Saraswati Devam Gaudavani Pacharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pascha Desha Tarane Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasari Gauda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Thank you very much for gathering together in the temple at this time, this most auspicious day, Srila Prabhupada's Disappearance Day. It's auspicious in one sense, in particular, that when we think of Srila Prabhupada's departure, we cannot help but think of Srila Prabhupada's being here. And when he was here, of course, things were going on, and there was so much pleasure in the process of devotional service. But when Srila Prabhupada left, then we were without, at least physically, his glorious, most wonderful self. And that was an opportunity for us to feel love and separation. What was this all about? Well, all of us had experienced, at least at that time, so much joy, so much happiness, so much satisfaction, so much fulfillment, so much growth, so much development. We experienced all that, and then suddenly the source of it, namely Srila Prabhupada, he was not to be seen. Of course, we can see him in numerous photographs, numerous films, see him in his books, see him in our remembrances. But that is not the same exactly as when he's actually present physically. When a person is, when I see Srila Prabhupada on a screen, and I see all of his wonderful transcendental gestures, his expressions, movements of his hands, expressions of his voice, the transcendental aspect, this is all great, it's all glorious. But when I got to actually be close to Srila Prabhupada, in fact, when Srila Prabhupada came in 1976, I believe it was from June 6th to the 11th, I had the great auspicious opportunity of standing just right to his right side, not because I was worthy of it, or I deserved it, or I should have even had it. It was one of these transcendental accidents. The accident is that somebody was needed to guard Srila Prabhupada's bookcase, which had all his books in it. So we wanted to put all the books, I shouldn't say we, Rameshwar Maharaj at that time, he wanted to put the books just aside of Prabhupada because he knew that Srila Prabhupada's books is one of his most delicious, most delightful, most memorable fixtures in Srila Prabhupada's memories. He loved his books, and he loved his books going out, being distributed here, there, and everywhere. So the books would be right there, all the books. Those of you who remember, 1976, June 6th to the 11th. So they were put there, and then Rameshwar said, wait a minute, we have to have somebody to guard the books. So they said, so he said, my name at that time was Bhakta Allen. It was not Amla Bhakta at that time. So he said, Bhakta Allen, are you into guarding Srila Prabhupada's books? I said, well, of course, just to touch the book, look at the book, hold the book. It's a great, wonderful, amazing experience because it's so transformative. So he said, well, we're putting the bookcase just to the right of Srila Prabhupada's hand, and we want you to stand right beside Prabhupada so that nobody gets near those books. Nobody should take them. They're not only valuable for what they are, but they're also mementos too. They're the early books, the first books that had come out. So I was there. And I had that experience of being right beside Srila Prabhupada. This was a very amazing experience. It was a first experience for me. And I came to realize that just as, for example, if you see a picture or a film of the sunshine, you can see all the light, but you cannot feel the heat. That's a different experience. You have to be out in the sun to feel the heat. And the heat has its own benefit, its own value, its own grace, so to speak. And that's what I actually found being just beside Srila Prabhupada. This was a great mercy that Lord Sri Krishna had provided me with. Because I didn't expect this at all. At all. I had only one other experience with Srila Prabhupada up in his room, which was a business talk, basically, and which I don't want to even talk about. So, as Srila Prabhupada was giving his lectures, this radiation, if you want to call it aura, was manifesting, and I was right beside it. I was literally being bathed in an ocean of love, Srila Prabhupada's love. And I could never forget this. It's so memorable that I see the difference. So in one sense, when you feel Srila Prabhupada in your heart, you feel Krishna in your heart, that is an amazing, awesome, incredible experience. But there's something even additional to that, Srila Prabhupada's personal feature. And that is, it's this rain of loving mercy that I was experiencing. So I just was just there, and I was just thinking. Remember, my background was that before coming here, I was head of a huge yoga center. I had another spiritual master. And I had many students, about 400 students were there. And then I gave all that up. There was a lot of giving up, a lot of money giving up, honor, distinction, glorification, TV shows, all of these things. But in effect, I felt I had given up nothing, because after seeing Srila Prabhupada, not seeing, but reading his books, and going to the temple and seeing what was going on, and also some of my students, one of whom is here, he left my ashram, he was one of my students. And I kept wondering, why did Brigupati leave? What did I do wrong? So, and then I finally, a little later on, and as the time passed, I went to as I said, the temple, 55th Street, 9th Avenue. And I was wondering what I did wrong. Well, I finally decided, after reading Srila Prabhupada's books and seeing how wonderful and amazing he was, that perhaps it would be a good idea for me to go to the temple there and see what was what. So I saw many of the students there, and they talked like philosophers. The people that are in my group, we talked like stupids, like people who knew nothing about the philosophy, talked in very wishy-washy talks. Oh, the one is there to meet you, to greet you. The one is there to pick you up and take you into infinite layers of reality. I mean, this is a nonsense talk. It doesn't make any sense. It reminds me of the kind of talk that some of my so-called friends used to have when they would get high on marijuana. That's what they would talk. And I used to wonder, what are they talking about? But anyway, that was their whole, different level of so-called consciousness. So getting back to my main point was that I felt that I was highly bathed in this avalanche, if you will, or downpour, if you will, of Srila Prabhupada's love, which would be acting within me at some point in time as an inspiration to do a lot of different devotional service, one of which it took 8 years for me to actually get it started. And that was which was called my tape ministry. And that got going, and then it just kept going. And I was, first it was one story. This was with KHQN Radio, which I was affiliated with. And then one book, and then 2 books, and then 5 books, and 8 books, and 10 books. I kept recording all of these different things, and devotees kept asking for more. So all those books that I recorded, and which thousands of people listen to today, I don't take any special credit for it, and that's my point right now. It was all the result of the inspiration that I received from Srila Prabhupada just standing there, which I could never forget, and which fired me up to the extent that I felt, Srila Prabhupada is doing so many wonderful, amazing, incredible things. Let me do even a fraction of that so that people can remember the great words, the glorious words, the tremendous and amazing activities, the amazing accomplishments of Srila Prabhupada. So when people are driving in their car, sometimes they just see the road, or they put on the news, or they put on the music, or put on this. So what I wanted is, but devotees should have the opportunity to listen to Srila Prabhupada's books. And in so doing, the books would continue developing and percolating and resulting in the extremely wonderful results that reading his books, hearing his books, remembering his books do for us. So those books that you hear, or those stories that you hear, or those characterizations, that all comes as a result of Srila Prabhupada's mercy. I give all credit to him. If there's anything good in them, they come from him. If there's anything bad in him, you can blame it on me, because he does only good things. Okay, so so therefore, all I can say is that we are so fortunate. We are so privileged. Our lives have been made so glorious, so wonderful, exceedingly wonderful, that we cannot even imagine it. Even if we try to think about it and try to understand it, we can't. So all we can do is say, Srila Prabhupada, thank you so very much. But my two words, thank you, are meaningless compared to what you have given. I cannot put into words. And if I started talking on and on and on, ad infinitum, I still wouldn't be finished praising you, honoring you, glorifying you, applauding you, celebrating you, and so forth. So in those last few words that I've just mentioned, all glories to Srila Prabhupada ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Srila Prabhupada ki. How merciful he is, bringing us together in a mood of celebration and glorification of Srila Prabhupada. Thank you all very much for listening. It is my pleasure and privilege to share with you, and I thank you for allowing me to share with you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Forgot my readers. Dear Srila Prabhupada, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to you, Srila Prabhupada, for being a brilliant guiding light through so much darkness. We are beyond fortunate, and I pray to be your sincere instrument in your loving mission to help others. Although I am so unqualified and forgetful, I beg to remain at your kind lotus feet and serve until my last breath. Thank you for loving us and giving us hope. I am so grateful that I have you, Srila Prabhupada, to love and trust forever. Your fortunate daughter, Jagajanani Dasi.
I should never plan on saying anything at these events after Dhananjaya Prabhu, because he starts talking and then anything I had planned to say, I forget about, and I start remembering all these things that he reminds me of when he starts talking. Like the last time on Prabhupada's Vyas Puja was talking about the Krishna Balaram temple and the installation of the deities and that significance and the history of ISKCON, and so I forgot everything else that I was going to say. And this morning, he was talking and he was mentioning what Prabhupada had said in Vrindavan about even if you all leave, the damage is already done. So many books have been distributed, others will come to take your place. Because I was there when Prabhupada said that. And this is the truth. When he said that a few minutes ago, I was thinking that over there in the back wall. I was actually thinking the same exact thing that he said. Because I always wondered if I had remembered that right. I said, did I really, again, it's been so long ago at this point, I was always wondering, do I remember these things accurately? And when he said that, the damage is already done, that always, something like that always stuck in my mind all these years, and then he just confirmed it a few minutes ago. So that threw me off track of what I was going to say otherwise. But I also have to point out that I was one of his first Mukut's customers. And I remember him, I'm sure I knew him before that, but I remember him vividly coming to Gainesville back in the 70s, because we had just installed the Gorni Thai there, and some of the first outfits, really gorgeous outfits that we had bought from Dhananjaya. So we became very friendly back then. But notwithstanding those little anecdotes, this is not a festive event for me, like Vyas Puja. I don't consider it celebratory as much as reflective, because as Amala Bhakta Maharaj was saying, this is really something, it's a different mood of serving Prabhupada in separation, and our resolve as devotees that Prabhupada is not here physically, at least we don't see him in the way that we used to see him. But I remember I was working on a project and I had to research the entire history of the BBT, from the very beginning of the first trust here in California, and trace the history and the trustees and look at room conversations and darshans and letters and so forth. And I remember the research took me into the 70s and up to 1977. And I remember coming across, if I'm remembering this accurately, there were a group of devotees there. I remember certainly Tamal Krishna Maharaj was there. He seems to be ubiquitous. He was everywhere in those days especially. But they were debating with Prabhupada. A group of senior devotees were trying to convince Prabhupada, oh, Prabhupada, please don't go. What will we do without you? That's something that you've heard over and over again, many devotees. I know myself, I did not believe Prabhupada was going to leave. I did not believe it. I did not think that Prabhupada would ever leave. Now, how he stayed here eternally, I thought he had a spiritual body and he was going to be here forever. I would die before he did. I did not think he was going to leave. So when Prabhupada told asked everybody to come to India when his departure was imminent, he wanted all the GBCs and sannyasis and the temple presidents to go to India. What's that? Well, I mean, I was a temple president then, so I don't remember I remember that part of it. Because I didn't go. I didn't go. I found an excuse. I said, well, I'm here, we got so many things going on. We had the Prashadam program going on at the campus at the university, and we had this new temple and so forth and so on. And I came up with so many excuses not to go. I sent somebody else to go. So I remembered, all these, things that happened back then. But it's not a happy experience. I regretted not going. I'm not sure how I would have reacted to that. Because I like to see Prabhupada in his remember Prabhupada when he was vibrant and full of energy and strength and vigor and traveling all over the world. I don't like these departure photos that people put up on Facebook. I immediately block that person because I don't want to see those things. I don't want to remember Prabhupada in that way. Some devotees do, and that's their, I understand that. But for me, I like to remember Prabhupada, you know, when I saw him and traveling and preaching and spreading this movement all over the world. But I remember the day that he departed. But anyway, getting back to this other thing. So these devotees were arguing with him, Prabhupada, please don't go. It wasn't no arguing. They were really begging him, don't leave us. Please stay. And Prabhupada had a very simple response. What is there that I have not given you? I have given you everything. What is there I have not given you? And they couldn't answer. They were silent. Because it's true, Prabhupada had given us everything. He has given us everything. So the day that he left, I didn't think he was going to leave. And I think I got the news from Balavanta Prabhu early in the morning. It was either right before Mangalartik or right afterwards. I think it was before. He called me. He was the GBC in Atlanta, and he called me. And, you know, it was very depressing. And I had to inform all the devotees in the temple, which was even more difficult than getting the news myself, was having to tell all the devotees, you know, we don't like to be the bearer of bad news, but that's what I had to do. So it was very depressing. I was very upset. Everybody, of course, was very upset. But ironically, on that day, now, when Gayatri left her body or departed last year, in some of the memorial services and talking about Gayatri and so forth, it was really amazing to me how many people out here in Los Angeles didn't know that we were originally from the East Coast. They thought that everything they knew about Gayatri was all here in Los Angeles. But before that, we were in Gainesville, we were in Florida for many years, and Gayatri had done some wonderful preaching there and became renowned as a cook, made the Vyas Puja cake at New Vrindavan in 1972. That's when she really became a rock star in ISKCON. Her and Mangalananda making that Vyas Puja cake that took 6 brahmacharis to get it up the hill to where Prabhupada was preaching on a palanquin. I won't get into that now, though, but my point is that I was also there before I came out to LA. I was also in Florida, and I was actually the temple president there, and have a life before I came out here to the West Coast. But that's not my point. My point is that the day that I got the news that Prabhupada had departed was the same day, as part of my responsibilities in Gainesville. We had the preaching center, we had the Krishna lunch program on campus, and then we bought the farm in Alachua. So the day that Prabhupada departed is the day that I had to go to the closing on the farm in Alachua to meet with the seller and the lawyers and sign the papers. But after I heard that Prabhupada had left, I lost all my enthusiasm for the closing and for the farm, even though it was a beautiful, you know, we see what it is today, but I was very depressed. I forced myself to go there and sign the papers. And for many years, I always had kind of a mental block or a negative feeling about the farm in Atlanta. I would have never developed it, to be honest, to what it is today. I had a completely different idea of what should be done out there. And I was not enthusiastic about it, and I always associated the farm with Prabhupada's departure, so I had this mental block. I had this negative feeling, even though it was a beautiful piece of land. And then about 5 or 7 years ago, I was in Alachua for Radhastami or something, and then there were so many devotees there and so many Prabhupada disciples there, and second generation and third generation. The place was packed, and it was like, it's a country road, and you drive down the road on a big festival day, in the middle of nowhere, there's like hundreds of cars parked in the field. And thousands of devotees all over the city in there. And I was looking at the community and I was saying, I finally realized what the significance of that farm was, that as Prabhupada literally was departing this world, going to wherever he is now, carrying on, fulfilling the mission of Bhaktisiddhanta, his Guru Maharaj, and Lord Chaitanya Sankirtan mission, he was leaving that legacy. He was leaving that particular facility for the generations of devotees that would come after his departure. And then my whole attitude towards the property of the farmer, whatever it is, changed when I could see, oh yes, and everything that Prabhupada did, everything that he said, everything that he did had meaning and purpose and was all meant to push on the Sankirtan movement. It had no other mission. As Priyananda Maharaj likes to remind me many times, Prabhupada was never what they call off message. He was always on message. No matter what the occasion, no matter what the situation, Prabhupada could never be deviated from his mission. So it's bittersweet, I guess you could call it. It's bittersweet. It's, on the one hand, we know Prabhupada's teachings. He's still here. He's in his books. He's in his instructions. We have everything. The fact that this movement is still going on as successfully as it is now is proof. And as I mentioned previously on Vyas Puja, as time goes on, just like Christianity, at the time of Jesus' presence, it was nothing. It was a little cult. But as future generations came after him, and as his significance became more and more understood by succeeding generations, the whole religion developed out of that. And so as time goes on, 40 or 50 years in the history of a religion is nothing. It's a speck of dust in the wind of time. It's nothing. But as generations go on, Prabhupada's legacy, his significance as the founder Acharya, there will never ever be another founder Acharya of ISKCON. Anyway, thank you very much.
I'm not quite sure why I've been asked to do this. Bear with me. Move the first. And then we'll take it. No, I'm okay. I'm not a direct disciple of Srila Prabhupada, but as Judakarma Prabhu had mentioned in one of his lectures one time, he contacted the secretary after receiving Bhagavad Gita. And this is the Bhagavad Gita that I received at LAX airport in 1976. Hardback, beautiful cover. And when the devotee approached me upstairs where the gates are, this was before 9/11, when the devotees were there, I got the second book from Jagadambika a few months later. And she said, I have something for you, Bhagavad Gita. And I'm going up the escalator and I'm saying, oh my God, I've been looking for that book. But that was a lie, because I had been told about the Bhagavad Gita, but I never went looking for it. And I was really grateful that it came to me. So my husband and I read this, took it on a trip to Costa Rica, and before we left, we wrote to the secretary, who was Swarupa Das at the time. Some of you might know him. I think he lives in the area and sometimes comes around. I wanted to share, and Bhakta Brad has agreed, and I'm going to give you this one. Swarupa Das, he sent us a letter. I had come back. We had come back from this trip to Costa Rica, and we were going to surrender to Srila Prabhupada. And Swarupa Das had already been writing to us. These were typewritten messages, no computers or email in those days. And so he wrote a typewritten message to his members through this newsletter. And I thought that it would be very nice, especially for the new devotees that don't know what the day was like then, and I asked Dr. Brad to please read it. So we can think that Swarupa Das is here with us. Maybe he'll show up later on today. But he was a wonderful devotee who wrote to us, like I said, typewritten letters, and would encourage us. And it was a wonderful personality to link up with because we were living far away. We didn't come to visit the temple until 1978. So we were saddened because we didn't get a chance to take initiation from Srila Prabhupada directly, but always knew that he lives on in his books. And that's where I am associating with Srila Prabhupada's purports, which I feel he's giving us all of the knowledge that we need to have. So please bear with us, but I'm going to have Dr. Brad.
Dear friends, Hare Krishna, all glories to His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. I have just recently returned from India after attending a Viraha Mahotsava, Festival of Separation, honoring the disappearance of His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada in Vrindavan. After a week in Vrindavan, I traveled to Mayapur, the birthplace of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then to Jagannath Puri, and on to Bombay, where our new center will be officially opened on January 14th. I would like to first give you a more detailed report about the passing away of Srila Prabhupada. His Divine Grace left this world in full Krishna consciousness at 7:25 p.m., November 14th, 1977. His last hours were spent peacefully in his quarters in Vrindavan, surrounded by disciples and admirers loudly chanting the holy name of the Lord. As you know, His Divine Grace has been ill for the past several months, but just to fill the world with spiritual love, Srila Prabhupada remained with us for some more time. He lived and died for Krishna. At the final moment, he expended his last breaths on his parting words, Hare Krishna. As one devotee said, His Divine Grace appeared like a flash. He appeared and disappeared like a flash across the sky, but in these 10 years he illuminated an entire transcendental landscape of devotees, temples, festivals, farms, schools, exhibitions, movies, institutes, artists, and books. Lord Chaitanya predicted his appearance, Bhaktivinoda Thakur predicted his appearance, and future generations will recognize how in just 10 years Srila Prabhupada changed the course of history. Srila Prabhupada has done what no other acharya, spiritual master, or incarnation has done. He has given the entire world Krishna consciousness, love of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, and he introduced Vedic culture, actual human civilization in which man can live and work for God, and at the end return back home, back to Godhead. After his disappearance, Srila Prabhupada's servants dressed his divine form in fresh cloth. His divine body was then placed in a sitting position on the palanquin which used to carry him to the temple, and hundreds of followers accompanied him for one last darshan, viewing of the Krishna and Balaram deities. Amidst the tumultuous sound of kirtan, his divine body was placed before each deity, first Lord Chaitanya, then Krishna and Balaram, and then Radha Shyamasundar. Then his divine body was taken for circumambulation around the temple. 2 devotees carried the palanquin, 2 were fanning his divine form, and hundreds of others were chanting and dancing in ecstasy. After this, his divine body was placed on the Vyasasan, sitting place of the spiritual master, to receive for the last time in his personal form the offering of Guru Puja by his disciples. Thus the devotees sang prayers in praise of the spiritual master, offered artik and offered flowers at his lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada's godbrothers and disciples performed kirtan throughout the night and the following morning at 6:30 a.m. upon the request of the residents in Vrindavan. Srila Prabhupada was taken on his palanquin for one last parikrama path to the major temples of Vrindavan, to give all the devotees of Vrindavan one last darshan of his divine form. Preceded by a brass band and Sankirtan party, Srila Prabhupada's party made a procession through the streets of Vrindavan as thousands of Vaishnavas, devotees of Krishna, came to their doors, windows, and rooftops to offer their final homage to Vrindavan's most illustrious world preacher, shouting, Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada. At 9:30, Srila Prabhupada's divine body was brought back to his Krishna Balaram temple for his glorious Samadhi ceremony, burial of his divine form. This took place before thousands of worshipful devotees, and concluded at 12:30 noon with artik and an ambrosial feast. Some days before his departure, while giving some of his personal belongings to his attending servants, His Divine Grace said, "I came into this world empty-handed, and I will go out empty-handed. Throughout my life, whatever I have had, I have given for others." Up to the last moment, Srila Prabhupada continued to give whatever energy he had for the benefit of others. Even while lying on his bed, practically unable to speak, His Divine Grace called his disciples to read the verses from the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, and read the commentaries of the previous Acharya. Then, with whatever little strength he had, he would speak the Bhaktivedanta purport to each verse. Practically, his voice could not be heard, but with a microphone, his disciple recorded each word, and thus Srila Prabhupada bestowed his mercy on the future readers of his eternal instructions in Srimad Bhagavatam. And then, after speaking, Srila Prabhupada would ask his disciples in the most humble way, "Is that all right?" Everyone loved Prabhupada. Friends, relatives, disciples, young people, old people, children, sons, mothers, men, women, Indians, foreigners, Christians, Hindus, gentlemen, and ruffians of all loved Prabhupada. And he loved everyone. He saw the essence of every soul, devotional service, Krishna Bhakti, and he appealed directly to the pure spirit of every person. In this way, he gave persons their spiritual identity. As such, he is called Paramahansa. The Hansa, or swan, can drink from a mixture of water and milk, and he can take the milk and leave the water. In the same way, Srila Prabhupada used to draw pure love of God from the hearts of whomever he contacted, leaving the material dirt to be cleansed by the holy name of the Lord. He was never too busy to receive a friend or visitor. He always found time to receive them, to hear them, to counsel them, and to make sure they got prasad. And as for his disciples, he was their life and soul. He was the perfect master and protector for his surrendered souls. On November 27th, a Viraha Mahotsav program was held, and respected guests came from everywhere to offer praise to Srila Prabhupada. Senior disciples of ISKCON came from throughout the world to pay respects and glorify His Divine Grace. One after another, talks were given glorifying the life and work of Srila Prabhupada, and everyone present offered flowers to his picture, which was placed inside the door of the Samadhi structure. His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada came with a great mission to deliver the suffering humanity with Krishna consciousness. You have already been kind enough to associate with yourselves with Srila Prabhupada's movement, and on behalf of His Divine Grace, we humbly thank you for your cooperation. Now we urge everyone, as we ourselves are doing, to renew our commitment to Srila Prabhupada so that Lord Chaitanya's desire and Srila Prabhupada's mission will be completely fulfilled. That in every town and village of every country of the world, these names will be sung. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. He reasons ill who tells that Vaishnavas ever die, while thou art living still and sound. A Vaishnav dies to live, and living tries to spread the holy name around. And so we can understand that Prabhupada's disappearance, like his appearance and activities here on earth, was the most awesome and significant event of our time. And for hundreds and thousands of years to come, empowered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and the disciplic succession, his mission was to change the entire world order, establish Krishna consciousness in all spheres of life, politically, socially, economically, philosophically, and culturally, and thus change the course of history of the universe by arranging for millions upon millions of living entities to become delivered from the cycle of birth and death. There is a beautiful purport in the Srimad Bhagavatam describing his transcendental service to the Lord. Asuras are gradually rectified to God consciousness by the mercy of the Lord's liberated servitors in different countries according to the supreme will. Such devotees of God are very confidential associates of the Lord, and when they come to save human society from the dangers of godlessness, they are known as the powerful incarnations of the Lord, as sons of the Lord, as servants of the Lord, or as associates of the Lord. Such servants of God are called Mahatmas, or Tirthas, and they preach according to particular time and place. The servants of God urge people to become devotees of the Lord. The servants of God come to propagate God consciousness, and intelligent people should cooperate with them in every respect. By serving the servant of God, one can please God more than by directly serving the Lord. The Lord is more pleased when he sees that his servants are properly respected, because such servants risk everything for the service of the Lord, and so are very dear to the Lord. The Lord declares in the Bhagavad Gita 18:69 that no one is dearer to him than one who risks everything to preach his glory. Although, according to material vision, His Divine Grace's presence is no longer perceivable, He is always present with us, guiding us by His words. Prabhupada has written in the Srimad Bhagavatam, if we are fixed in our determination to carry out the supreme order of the Lord, we are always secure, regardless of where we are situated, whether in hell or in heaven. The devotee in the Krishna consciousness movement are preaching all over the world in accordance with the order of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But by the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they are unaffected by material influence. Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 1, Verse 19. In describing how his Guru Maharaj has guided the Krishna consciousness movement, Srila Prabhupada said, Sri Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami, at the time of his passing away, ordered all his disciples to work conjointly to preach the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu all over the world. We believed in the words of our spiritual master and started in a humble way, in a helpless way. But due to the spiritual force of the order of the Supreme Authority, this movement has become successful. Many people throughout the world are wondering how this Krishna consciousness movement will go on. They are not sure if Srila Prabhupada's disciples will be strong enough to continue this great mission in the absence of His divine grace. Some people are of the opinion that this is the end of the Hare Krishna movement. Others are thinking now the followers will split up into factions and become materialistic, fighting over the assets of the movement. So now we have to show by our actions that we have some genuine devotion to our spiritual master. The world is watching and we are being tested. By our sincere desire and with Krishna's blessings, we can take up the responsibility that has been given to us and push on with this transcendental movement. Srila Prabhupada once said that as one person he has brought 10,000 people to Krishna consciousness. He continued that each one of us can bring another 10,000 and go on in this way. And we will see how this movement will inundate the entire world with love of God. So this is our key to success, to become pure and serve Srila Prabhupada without any material motivation. Otherwise, what can stop this movement, which is already predestined to reach into every corner of the world? So a new era in the history of the Krishna consciousness movement begins, and we see the future is very bright. Maya is very strong, but if we all together work in Krishna's service, then we will triumph. The example is given that a single stick can be easily broken, but if you tie many sticks together in a tight bundle, then who can break? Therefore, let us all who have gathered at the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada stick closely together in a spirit of love and trust, and dedicate ourselves to the eternal service of our beloved spiritual master. In next month's newsletter, we will add the usual supplements and give news of ISKCON activities and book publication and distribution. Thank you very much for helping in whatever way you can, and I wish you all a Happy New Year in Krishna's service. Our latest issue of Back to Godhead will be mailed in a few days, and it contains many articles concerning Lord Jesus Christ, since this is the time of the year meant especially for glorifying His holiness. Sincerely, Swarup Das. Hare Krishna. And I obviously was not here for Srila Prabhupada's presence on this earth, but I can feel his presence just by reading his books, and I feel very motivated to continue on with the Krishna consciousness movement. Hare Krishna.
Dear Srila Prabhupada, please accept my humble obeisances, all glories to your divine grace. Please accept this verse offering. One night in 1974, as I walked onto the concert floor to listen to a rock and roll band, someone put your book into my hand. Hello, brother, pleased to meet ya. please read my Guru's Bhagavad Gita. I sat down and opened up the book and saw your picture with your mysterious look. And while the music around me swirled, I sensed you were from another world, a world beyond this haunted place where no one ever wins the race against the runner close behind, who will take the body but not the mind. I sensed you were sent here on a mission by someone now beyond my vision, one long forgotten but unforgetting, unloved by me but all forgiving. I took your Gita home and read it. My soul was hungry and you fed it with truth beyond all faults and lies, without any kind of compromise. It was not enough, I needed more, so I wrote to LA asking for more of your books and tapes of your talks, which soon arrived in my mailbox. When I heard your voice so strong and clear, it penetrated my heart through my ear, shocking me, breaking every illusion that had led me into a life of confusion. After some time, I learned of your temples, and there I could see real examples of people following the teachings you were giving, so I got attracted to that way of living. I moved into your temple in Washington, D.C., and then served in Florida, ISKCON Miami. There you accepted me as your disciple, and then my name was no longer Bhakta Michael. I never got to speak to you or go on your morning walk, but I am grateful that a few times I got to hear you talk. And once I got to fan you with a peacock fan as you sat regally speaking on your Vyasa-san. So life went on, and then, although it came not without warning, we received in Los Angeles one fateful morning the news that you had in holy Vrindavan left your body and now were gone. Now I am feeling separation from you, my master, who rescued me from a life leading only to disaster. So yes, today I am feeling some sense of loss and am praying, please do not forget your servant, Dhruta Karma Das. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Recently, there's been some devotees that have left their bodies. We've been seeing their pictures in the frame that is at Srila Prabhupada's feet. So the event of those devotees passing have inspired these thoughts. Speaking into the mic. Okay. There is a simple wooden picture frame that sometimes claims a space at the bottom step in the shade of Srila Prabhupada's lotus feet. It's a place that's quite distinguished, top honor to be remembered. And that face or name that we can't quite recollect, one will surely ask, who's that? Who is so blessed to end up here at the divine lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada? No reservations are required, but your arrival is expected. Sometime sooner or later, who is younger, who is older, who is closer to death? Who can calculate, me or you? Everyone is leveled to a common denominator to seek shelter and bow down at the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada. The appearance of some faces takes us by surprise and causes us to cry. Some are to be expected, and somber eyes stare back at us, kind and wise. Let the swan of our minds be entwined at the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada. Some faces are youthful, shining bright with bliss of younger days, reflecting the glory of His holiness. Kids in our 20s we were, aspiring transcendentalists. Now many years later, taking a final bow at the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada. Some stand tall, with tilak, sari or dhoti, with bead bag in hand. We served in foreign lands, brave and bold, answering the clarion call, through India heat and Russia cold. Old soldiers never die. When bowed, they fall at the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada. For some will say, how sad, a cruel twist of fate, how can this be? And for others there is a sigh of relief and bittersweet glad, released and freed from the pain, suffering, and grief of a mortal frame. So again and again we rise and fall at the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada. That in the end, brother and sister, foe or friend, family and nation, bird and beast, we all this must contend. We pray to return to where we once did belong by surrendering our lives and be saved at the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada. So hold fast, hold tight, and never lose your grasp, for Maya is strong and her storm we must weather. Look neither left nor to the right, lest we lose sight of the beautiful lotus feet of our merciful Srila Prabhupada. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
If you don't mind, I'm going to stand. It's too hard to sit and get up again. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Bacharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatadishtarane. So, I'm going to speak briefly, but a lot of it is going to be related to the lecture that Prabhupada gave this morning. So I just want to know how many of you actually heard that lecture. August 23rd, 1973, London. Prabhupada was speaking on the occasion of Vyasa Puja. So he made it clear that the mood of Vyasa Puja is one of gratitude, thankfulness. Vyasa Puja is the appearance or avirbhava of the spiritual master or the Lord. And this celebration or observance today is the Tirubhav, disappearance, which we don't observe for the Lord, only for the Lord's devotees. So the mood of thankfulness is definitely there also. To be thankful to the spiritual master. Of course, it's been mentioned, separation is there. And there are other moods also, regret of not having taken full advantage of the physical presence of the spiritual master. But there are two things that Prabhupada stressed very much in this lecture this morning. One was thankfulness for the knowledge, and he's given us that knowledge in the form of his books. And he also stressed the importance of becoming guru. Now I'm going to stress these two things in a little bit more detail, because not necessarily for my God brothers and God sisters who have already formed their own opinion about whatever they think they've heard from Prabhupada, but I'm specifically concentrating on trying to encourage these young devotees, and we have a very nice group of young devotees here, to read Prabhupada's books, listen to Prabhupada's lectures. If you don't do that, you're doing a disservice to yourself. Because if you're not equipped by having heard directly what Prabhupada wants you to do, then when somebody else comes and tells you what they think Prabhupada wants you to do, you may be confused. So it's your duty to yourself to hear what Prabhupada says, listen to all of his lectures, read all of his books, and then you'll be better equipped to interact with others who think they know what Prabhupada wants you to do. So Prabhupada said on the books this morning, he was glorifying and thanking Sriman Pradyumna Das, who we call Panditji, for editing his books. So Pradyumna was doing the Sanskrit editing. So right away we understand that whatever Sanskrit editing took place was Prabhupada's desire. It's not that Pradyumna went to Prabhupada and said, look, I want to edit your books. Prabhupada asked him to edit the books. And the same thing happened on the English editing. Hayagriva, then Howard Wheeler, when he met Srila Prabhupada and he told him he was a professor of English literature, Prabhupada said, oh, do you know how to edit? And he said, yes. So Prabhupada said, here, take this manuscript, edit it, and retype it. So I'm trying to impress on the young devotees especially over the years that the editing of Prabhupada's books did not become something self-manifest. It was not forced on Prabhupada. He created the English editing department and he created the Sanskrit editing department. Now one may argue that after he left, the editing should have stopped, but Prabhupada himself gave the reason in this morning's lecture. He said, I asked Sriman Pradyumna Das to edit my books to make them perfect. Prabhupada said, of course, I wrote the manuscript. He said that. He mentioned that in this morning's class. I wrote the manuscript. So, you know, somebody could say, Prabhupada came from the spiritual world. He said that Krishna dictated these books to him. Why do they need to be edited in any way, shape, or form? Why not just take whatever Prabhupada spoke and just give it to the public? Prabhupada wanted it done. He said, I wanted these books to be made perfect. Therefore, I have my Sanskrit editor. And the same reason he gave to Hayagriva, who was still then Bhakta Howard, I want my books to be perfect. Edit them. So I just want the young devotees to understand that, because this is one of the areas where people are always bombarding. Why the editing? Why the editing? The editing started because Prabhupada wanted it. Sanskrit editing on one track, English editing on the other track. So, and then the other thing Prabhupada mentioned that's still very controversial, always in the air, nobody should be guru. Prabhupada said, all of you should become a guru. He stressed it over and over in this morning's talk. He said, every man, every woman, every boy, every girl should become a guru. What is the difficulty? How many times did he say that phrase this morning? What is the difficulty? He said it's very simple. You don't have to be a big scholar. Even if you're not literate, simply repeat what you hear from your Guru Maharaj. Can we do that? Can we listen to Prabhupada, all of you, especially these youngsters I'm speaking to, listen to Prabhupada, repeat what Prabhupada tells you. As Prabhupada himself said, what is the difficulty? There is no, he said, and he specifically stressed, don't be over-intelligent. There are a lot of people who will try to impress upon you that they're very intelligent, therefore you should listen to them. Prabhupada said, don't be over-intelligent. It's not a difficult job. Hear and repeat. Bas, finished. So, I became attracted to Srila Prabhupada's movement and to Srila Prabhupada himself because of his books. I was definitely attracted by the philosophy. Not prasadam, not the chanting, just the philosophy. That's what attracted me. And why was I so attracted? When I joined in '73, at that time, in New York especially, I mean, probably all around the world, my generation, the baby boomers, it was very, it was de rigueur to interpret everything that you read. If you couldn't interpret things creatively, then nobody would listen to you. You had to show that you could interpret everything that you read. Even conversations. If you had a conversation, he said, she said, if you could repeat that conversation in a very creative way, interpret, fill in the gaps, then you were somebody worth listening to. But that's not required with Prabhupada. And Prabhupada made that clear. The very first pamphlet I read, Krishna Reservoir, I saw that. You can't interpret this person. It's too clear. Krishna, that name is transcendental. Krishna means the highest pleasure. You can't interpret that. It's very clear. And that's what attracted me to Prabhupada's books. Everything is completely clear. So all of us, ultimately, but especially these young devotees, you owe it to yourself. Read Prabhupada's books, listen to Prabhupada's lectures, repeat what you hear. That's it. Then you become a spiritual master. It doesn't mean necessarily everybody's going to be an initiating spiritual master, but you can guide others. As Prabhupada said, go out into the public, guide people. They need it. And you do that very clearly, very easily by listening to Srila Prabhupada, everything that he says, all the lectures. How many times, Brigu, if we had $1 for every time we look at each other after a lecture and go, roll our eyes. It's just non-ending. Every time Prabhupada says something, it's just like mind-blowing. So listen to Prabhupada, repeat what Prabhupada says, read Prabhupada's books, repeat what Prabhupada says, and then everything is clear. And if somebody's attached to the pre-78 books, that's okay. That's what brought us. But there's no doubt that the post-78 books are exploding the Krishna consciousness movement. Every other country around the world, they have taken those post-78 books and translated them into their languages, and that's what's expanding Krishna consciousness in Russia and all over the world. So we cannot deny the potency of Prabhupada's teachings, even in the edited versions that so many people are so afraid of. Prabhupada wanted his books edited to be brought to a point of perfection. He wanted that. Now you may say again, why should it go on after he left? Fine, then stay with those books and follow them. Whatever he says there, repeat it. Whatever he says in his pre-78 books, repeat it. Whatever you hear in any version of Prabhupada's books, repeat it. Listen to Prabhupada's lectures, repeat it. Follow Prabhupada's instructions and make the world a more fortunate place. It's absolutely required. We see all the craziness that goes on. So our gratitude is to Prabhupada for taking us out of that crazy world, taking us out of this mood of thinking we have to interpret everything and show how creative and intelligent we are. We're not. We're simply going to hell without Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. Hare Krishna. Manishpadaya Krishna Pastaya Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Shasunyavati Paskacha Desatarne. This morning on the altar, every morning on the altar, there's a tape of Srila Prabhupada which plays so that while we're dressing the deities, we can listen to Prabhupada's speaking. And the tape is actually turned on by Mayapur. It's one of his services that he's been doing for over 40 years. After he finishes undressing Rukmini Dwarkadish, then, and taking all of the paraphernalia off the altar, he turns on a tape so that the dressers can listen to Prabhupada. This morning, Srila Prabhupada was talking about Shaktivesh Avatar. And he, very simply, he said we accept Jesus Christ and Muhammad to be Shaktivesh avatars. And he said the reason that we accept them to be Shaktivesh avatars is because they dedicated their lives to spreading Krishna, to spreading God consciousness, and to bringing others to God consciousness. And in that light, I was realizing, yes, I understand. Srila Prabhupada is also Shaktivesh avatar. We've been hearing that a lot lately, but Srila Prabhupada explained so simply why one is accepted as Shaktivesh avatar. Also, we can see that Jesus Christ's mission spread throughout the world, although it did take some centuries to spread throughout the world, as did Muhammad's mission. Srila Prabhupada's mission spread, even before he died, he had 108 temples all over the world, and disciples from all over the world. So we can see that he is truly Shaktiveshavatar. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Dear Srila Prabhupada, please accept my sincere obeisances at your lotus feet. Hare Krishna. When I was growing up, educators described certain students as gifted underachievers. I really think it was a euphemism for someone with reasonable abilities, but who lacked the motivation to achieve much, a gifted underachiever. And I would apply that term to my initial sojourn in ISKCON. Yes, I did render some service to your movement, Srila Prabhupada, mainly in your Spanish BBT, and that was under Hridayananda Maharaj and Bir Krishna Maharaj, and also at your Back to Godhead magazine under Jai Advaita Swami. And prior to that, in 1974, I was sent as an interim temple president to help save a struggling ISKCON center on a tiny, dark, Spanish-speaking island in the Caribbean where it was actually illegal to be a devotee. Now, maybe I was overly paranoid, but it was considered very high risk to enter this country. So as a disguise, I not only put on a wig and a suit and a tie, but as I passed through immigration, I held a lighted cigarette, even though I had never smoked in my life. Well, tobacco anyway. And with the help of local devotees, we were able to import thousands of your so-called illegal Spanish books and distribute them to the public. But despite adhering to strict sadhana and developing loving friendships with the devotees, there was still a part of me that remained unexpressed, unsettled, and dissatisfied. I am ashamed to say it, Srila Prabhupada, but I strayed from your service for quite some time. I never forgot you. I always accepted that Krishna was in his name, and I maintained friendships with a number of devotees. But during that time, besides trying to heal some emotional issues I had put on hold while in ISKCON, I sometimes behaved in ways I'm not very proud of. But this led to my realizing that I had a long way to go to once again meet the standard of civilized human life. Fast forward a number of years, one of the devotees I'd maintained a connection with during my time outside was your disciple, Narahari Prabhu. Narahari had built your Miami temple into a tropical paradise and then had moved to Hawaii and conducted innovative preaching programs such as launching the Jaladuta II and using the sailing vessel to make devotees. I had helped Narahari Prabhu start a church organization in 1994 to help facilitate his preaching. And he consulted with me about the church periodically over the years. Then in February of 2014, he needed so much of my time that we spent 1 or 2 hours a day on the phone for a couple of weeks. And gradually he started to remind me about you and about Krishna and how sublime it was to engage in your service. And what can I say? The message began to enter my heart and take hold. And within 3 months, I resumed chanting japa, gradually increasing to 16 rounds, reassociating with the devotees and following their principles. And just 4 months later, I was introduced to a delightful, stalwart Vaishnavi, Kalpalatika Devi. And 2 years later, we were married, first by Narahari Prabhu in Hawaii, and then by your servants Akrurnath and Jagarini, right here in this temple in a wonderful ceremony attended by over 100 of your faithful servants. Let me be honest, I'm not rendering a fraction of the service I did as a brahmachari when all there was sadhana in the morning, service in the day, and reading and rest at night.
But neophyte as I am, there's a certain quality to my chanting and a certain appreciation of you and of the devotees that I never experienced in the past. So while the quantity of service is certainly less, it seems that the quality might have increased. And the urgency is there as I've just turned 70 and there's so little time left to dedicate my life to your service. Not many devotees know about it, but there's a daily live morning Bhagavatam class on a platform called eSangha. It was founded in 2010 by your disciple Ramananda Prabhu in Hawaii and features some very gifted class givers, including sannyasis, initiating gurus, and senior Vaishnavis. And devotees tune in daily from all over the U.S. and even from South America and India to hear Bhagavatam classes on eSangha. Anyway, in 2014, I began attending Bhagavatam class regularly on eSangha. The founder, Ramananda Prabhu, and I became friends, and he gradually began urging me to give classes on eSangha. This went on for several years until just this summer I finally relented and began giving Bhagavatam classes about once a month. Srila Prabhupada, all my life I have aspired to deliver a significant message in spoken form, but somehow my first time around in ISKCON I lacked the studiousness and the focus to give many classes. So while I was still practicing Krishna consciousness and continuing for 30 years, I conducted an educational radio interviews, including 10 years of television interviews on a variety of topics. But I was always facilitating someone else's message, usually about topics like diet and health. So it wasn't until I returned to your shelter, devoting myself again to strict sadhana, regulative principles, and nurturing friendships with devotees, that I finally found my voice by speaking the sublime Bhagavat philosophy in the company of devotees. So I no longer need to broadcast the speculative thoughts of some mundane person as I did for so many years on radio and TV. I can now speak Krishna's divine message, Srila Vyasadev's sublime text, as presented to the world by your divine grace for the welfare of all. So it is due only to your causeless grace that I've been accepted back into the company of your devotees. And now I'm beginning to find full expression of the soul by periodically giving classes to the devotees from your Srimad Bhagavatam. And I can't remember a time in which I felt so much appreciation for its message. So thank you, Srila Prabhupada, for all the sacrifices you, the person Bhagavat, made to bring the book Bhagavat to the attention of practically every human being on earth. Your accomplishments are staggering, but even greater than your accomplishments is the unprecedented depth of your love and kindness in extending a hand to absolutely anyone and everyone who will take hold. And as I have personally experienced, even if we let go for some time, your hand of mercy is always there, waiting for us to grab hold once again. It's almost as if you're the very incarnation of the mercy of Srimati Radharani. So again, Srila Prabhupada, thank you. Thank you. All glories to you on this, the 41st anniversary of your divine disappearance. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Jai Jagadish Prabhu. And thank you, everybody, for being here and listening. I apologize. That's all the homages we're going to have time for this morning. I'd like to particularly apologize to Bhargava, Tattavit, Vijay, and Gopinath Prabhus who were prepared and wanting to speak. All I could offer is that the program will resume at 7 p.m. this evening in Srila Prabhupada's room, and there'll be more homages and churning the nectar until 8:30 this evening. It'll start up there in Prabhupada's room at 7, then come down here at 7:30, at 8:30. So it'll go until 8:30. So perhaps those devotees might like to speak then, and other people that wanted to speak and didn't get an opportunity this morning can speak then. Okay.